If you want to grasp why one nation keeps obesity under 5%, while most developed countries exceed 30%, don't focus on gym memberships or calorie tracking. Look at what appears on the breakfast table every single morning. Japan holds the longest life expectancy worldwide, with an obesity rate almost 10 times lower than the United States. They are not starving themselves or running extreme distances. They consume a specific mix of foods that quietly alter how their bodies store and burn fat at the cellular level, with one particular item most Westerners avoid. Conventional wisdom says eat less, move more, count calories, and you will eventually lose weight. But after nearly 15 years in emergency medicine and studying metabolic disorders, I have seen evidence that challenges that simple advice. The Japanese eat more carbohydrates per capita than most Western nations. White rice appears at nearly every meal. Yet rates of metabolic syndrome, visceral fat accumulation, and type 2 diabetes remain among the lowest on Earth. The difference is not quantity, but what they pair with those carbohydrates, which changes everything. Research on traditional Japanese dietary patterns is more than intriguing. It is paradigm shifting. Western diets focus on restriction and deprivation, while the Japanese consume foods that actively instruct fat cells to shrink, guide gut bacteria to suppress appetite hormones, and activate the body's internal fat-burning furnace. These foods have been staples for centuries. A particular fermented superfood eaten daily has been shown in lab studies to reduce visceral fat cells and restore gut microbiome balance within weeks. A specific compound in green tea, consumed differently in Japan than the West, triggers brown adipose tissue, the hidden fat-burning furnace, boosting calorie expenditure by up to 43%. The Japanese framework called Ichiju Sansai naturally manages portions without counting calories. Their 4 to 8.5% obesity rate is linked not to genetics, but to 5 key foods and proper preparation that preserves their fat-fighting properties. To understand Japan's approach, one must consider the gut microbiome. Think of the digestive system as a factory floor, staffed by thousands of bacteria processing everything eaten. In a healthy gut, workers are efficient, extracting nutrients, producing appetite hormones, and sending clear signals to the brain to indicate fullness. In Western guts, this factory is chaotic and understaffed. Years of processed foods, refined sugars, and low fiber have killed off skilled bacteria, replacing them with strains that increase hunger, inflame tissues, and promote fat storage, especially around organs. This visceral fat wraps around the liver, pancreas, and intestines, releasing inflammatory chemicals called cytokines that drive insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, and some cancers. Japan's secret lies in its traditional diet, arguably the most potent for optimizing the gut microbiome. It is rich in fermented foods, soluble fiber, marine omega-3 fatty acids, and polyphenols, which replenish the gut with efficient fat-fighting bacteria. A global study covering 132 countries found that adherence to a traditional Japanese diet inversely correlated with obesity rates, even when controlling for GDP, lifestyle, and socioeconomic factors. Countries that consumed more fish, soy, seaweed, vegetables, and less red meat and dairy showed dramatically lower obesity rates. Fermentation and gut microbiome remodeling form the cornerstone of the Japanese metabolic advantage. Fermented foods such as natto, miso, and traditionally brewed soy products are biological delivery systems. Natto, made from soybeans fermented with bacillus, increases the ratio of Bacteroides to Firmicutes, 2 major bacterial families. A higher Firmicutes to Bacteroides ratio is consistently linked to obesity. Regular natto consumption shifts this ratio, promoting a lean bacterial profile. Research in the Journal of Molecular Nutrition and Food Research found that natto intake reduced visceral fat in a dose-dependent way, suppressing fatty acid synthesis in the liver while enhancing breakdown. Fermented soy is far more potent than plain soybeans. Fermentation unlocks bioavailable isoflavones, natto compounds, enzymes, and probiotics that immediately support gut function. Green tea also plays a key role, but differently than most Westerners consume it. In Japan, matcha is consumed as a finely ground powder. That means the entire tea leaf is taken in, rather than only drinking infused water. This approach delivers as much as 137 times more EGCG, known as epigallocatechin galete, compared with a typical brewed cup of green tea. EGCG has a remarkable effect. It stimulates brown adipose tissue, a specialized form of fat that acts like an internal heater. Unlike white fat, which stores energy reserves, brown fat expends energy to create warmth through thermogenesis. A systematic review published in the journal Nutrients evaluated 10 experimental studies and confirmed that green tea catechins increase production of UCP1, or uncoupling protein 1. This protein functions as the molecular trigger that activates brown fat. Once UCP1 is switched on, brown fat begins using white fat as fuel. The body effectively burns its stored fat to generate heat. Research conducted at the University of Geneva demonstrated that green tea extract increased 24-hour energy expenditure by 4%. This effect was not caused by caffeine alone. When researchers tested the same amount of caffeine without catechins, metabolic rate remained unchanged. The benefit came from the catechin and caffeine combination, which amplified noradrenaline signaling and maintained activation of the fat-burning process. Another important mechanism involves dietary fiber and satiety. While less dramatic, it is equally significant. Traditional Japanese eating patterns contain large amounts of seaweed, root vegetables, barley, and fermented plant foods. Together, they provide both soluble and insoluble fiber at levels rarely reached in Western diets. A study from the Fukuoka Diabetes Registry involving more than 4,300 Japanese participants found that greater fiber consumption was strongly associated with lower BMI, reduced fasting glucose, lower triglycerides, and decreased inflammatory markers. These relationships remained significant even after accounting for age, sex, and total calorie intake. Fiber nourishes beneficial intestinal bacteria. These microbes produce short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate. Butyrate performs two essential functions. It strengthens the intestinal barrier, helping prevent inflammatory compounds from entering the bloodstream. It also communicates with the brain through the gut-brain axis, reducing appetite. The result is feeling truly satisfied with less food rather than feeling deprived. Several studies reinforced these findings. Researchers at the Gillen Academy of Agricultural Sciences provided natto powder to obese rats for 8 weeks. Compared with controls, the natto-fed animals experienced meaningful reductions in body weight. Cholesterol metabolism improved through inhibition of liver X receptor pathways. Their gut microbiome also shifted, showing increased bacteroidetes and reduced firmicutes according to metagenomic analysis. These changes were measurable biological outcomes. In another experiment using mice with diet-induced obesity, 8 weeks of bacillus natto treatment significantly lowered body weight, epididymal fat, perirenal fat, and liver weight. Blood triglycerides and total cholesterol also declined. The bacteria reduced fatty acid synthesis while enhancing fatty acid breakdown. These results were documented through laboratory measurements rather than subjective observations. A landmark thermogenesis investigation from the University of Geneva reported that green tea extract, containing 90 mg of EGCG and 50 mg of caffeine, generated a statistically significant 4% increase in 24-hour energy expenditure. The respiratory quotient decreased from 0.88 to 0.8585, demonstrating a measurable shift away from carbohydrate utilization and toward fat utilization. Caffeine alone at the identical dose produced no effect. A separate worldwide analysis covering 132 nations found that traditional Japanese diet scores were inversely associated with obesity rates, with statistical significance of p0.001001. The relationship remained even after adjustments for GDP, education, healthcare expenditure, and smoking prevalence. Nations whose eating habits more closely resembled Japan consistently showed lower obesity levels across every continent and economic category. These findings were controlled, measurable, and reproducible. Natto is the first key food. A daily serving of 50 gram, approximately one traditional small package, is typically eaten with rice at breakfast. If texture is an issue, it can be mixed with a small amount of soy sauce and mustard, the same method commonly used in Japan. Bacillus subtilis bacteria survive stomach acid and reach the intestines alive, helping explain why natto often outperforms many probiotic supplements. If fresh natto is unavailable, frozen versions sold in Asian grocery stores remain equally effective because the bacteria become active again after thawing. The second food is matcha green tea. Consume 1 to 2 teaspoons of ceremonial-grade powder daily, equivalent to roughly 2 to 3 grams. Whisk it into water heated to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, and avoid boiling temperatures, which damage delicate catechins. It is generally consumed during the morning or early afternoon. Adding lemon can increase EGCG absorption by up to 6 times. Cow's milk should be avoided because casein proteins bind to catechins and may reduce absorption by as much as 80%. Plant-based milk alternatives do not present this issue. Miso soup is the third food. 1 bowl each day prepared with unpasteurized miso paste is recommended. The unpasteurized form is essential because pasteurization eliminates beneficial bacteria. Dissolve 1 teaspoon of miso into warm water or dashi broth rather than boiling liquid. Seaweed, tofu, and scallions can be added. This combination supplies both probiotics and prebiotic fiber within a single serving. Seaweed ranks 4th. Consume 5 to 10 grams of dried wakame or kombu 3 to 4 times each week. Seaweed contains fucoxanthin, a compound shown in studies to specifically target visceral fat by increasing UCP1 expression within white adipose tissue. This process encourages white fat cells to behave more like brown fat-burning cells. Seaweed can be incorporated into soups, salads, or rice dishes. The 5th food is fatty fish. Eat 3 servings each week of salmon, mackerel, sardines, or other seafood rich in omega-3 fats. Each serving should provide at least 284 milligrams of omega-3. EPA and DHA help preserve brown fat activity while reducing systemic inflammation. Grilling or baking is preferred because deep frying damages omega-3 fats and introduces inflammatory oils. Pickled vegetables, known as tsukemono, represent the 6th food. A small serving of roughly 30 to 50 grams each day is typical. Traditional Japanese pickles fermented in rice, bran nukadoko, contain abundant lactobacillus bacteria that further enrich gut microbiome diversity. Naturally fermented varieties are preferred over vinegar-pickled products because they contain live cultures. The 7th food is barley or mixed grain rice. Replace plain white rice with mugi gohan, a barley and rice blend, at least once daily. A cross-sectional study found that non-obese Japanese individuals who consumed more barley had significantly larger populations of butyrate-producing bacteria in their digestive systems. The recommended ratio is 70% white rice and 30% barley. After years studying the fiber satiety pathway and metabolic health, certain principles distinguish those who achieve results from those who do not. Timing synergy is key. Drink matcha 30 minutes before your largest meal. The catechins prime brown fat for activation just as the body begins processing the most incoming calories. This is when thermogenesis is most effective. Follow the Ichiju Sansai framework. Arrange meals the traditional Japanese way. 1 soup, 3 side dishes, plus rice. 1 bowl of miso soup, 1 protein serving such as fish, tofu, or natto, and 2 small vegetable sides. This naturally produces a plate high in fiber, moderate in protein, and properly portioned without counting calories. Japanese people rely on the structure rather than measuring intake. Fermented food stacking is another tip. Do not consume all fermented foods at once. Spread natto at breakfast, miso at lunch, and pickled vegetables at dinner. This maintains a steady supply of beneficial bacteria throughout the day instead of an overwhelming dose your gut cannot fully use. The 12-hour overnight window is also important. Most Japanese families eat dinner by 7 or 8 p.m. and breakfast at 7 a.m., creating an 11 to 12-hour fasting period. This is cultural timing, not intentional intermittent fasting, but it allows the body to burn stored fat overnight while dinner's beneficial bacteria perform repair work undisturbed. Harahachibu is the Okinawan practice of stopping at 80% fullness. Gut satiety hormones take about 20 minutes to signal the brain. Eating to 80% ensures satisfaction by the time the signals arrive, avoiding overeating. This habit can reduce caloric intake by 15 to 20% without feeling deprived. Common mistakes include inconsistency, trying these foods for a week, not seeing dramatic results, and quitting is ineffective. The gut microbiome requires 4 to 8 weeks to meaningfully restructure. Natto and matcha do not produce instant effects. The Japanese remain lean because they consume these foods daily, year after year. Consistency is essential. Another mistake is boiling matcha or miso. Extreme heat destroys these foods' active compounds. Pouring boiling water over matcha can destroy up to 60% of EGCG. Adding miso to boiling water kills probiotics entirely. The rule is simple: 175-degree Fahrenheit water for matcha, and miso should be added only after removing the pot from heat. Buying supplements instead of whole foods is a frequent error. Nattokinase capsules or matcha extract pills lack the full synergy of whole foods, including fiber, prebiotic compounds, and live bacteria. Natto supplements deliver only one enzyme, whereas real natto provides enzymes, bacillus, isoflavones, soluble fiber, and vitamin K2. Whole foods provide the complete package. Expecting the scale to reflect all changes is another mistake. Waist circumference is a more reliable measure. If the waist shrinks, but the scale remains the same, visceral fat is decreasing and lean tissue may be increasing. Measure weekly for an accurate assessment of metabolic health. The main takeaway: gaining weight with age is not inevitable, and metabolic decline is not predetermined by DNA. Japanese leanness is not genetic. When Japanese people adopt Western diets, obesity rates rise within one generation. Those who maintain healthy metabolism into their 60s and 70s do so by consistently consuming foods that support the body's natural systems. A diverse gut microbiome, active brown adipose tissue, low systemic inflammation, and stable blood sugar. These systems are intact and responsive. They need the right dietary signals. Japan's 4.5% obesity rate reflects diet composition, not genetics or calorie restriction. Global studies of 132 countries show traditional Japanese diet adherence inversely predicts obesity. Natto reshapes the gut microbiome by increasing bacteroidetes to firmicutes ratios, reducing visceral fat dose dependently, and suppressing liver fat synthesis. Consume 50 gram daily. Matcha provides concentrated EGCG, activating brown adipose tissue via UCP1, increasing energy expenditure by up to 4%, and shifting metabolism from carbohydrate to fat burning. Take 1 to 2 teaspoons daily at 175-degree Fahrenheit with lemon, no dairy. Miso soup delivers probiotics and prebiotics. Use unpasteurized miso in warm, not boiling broth. 1 bowl daily. Seaweed contains fucoxanthin, converting white fat toward a brown fat phenotype. Consume 5 to 10 gram 3 to 4 times per week. Fatty fish 3 times weekly supplies omega-3 to sustain brown fat activity and reduce inflammation. Fermented pickles and barley rice blends enhance gut microbiome diversity and increase butyrate-producing bacteria. Use Ichiju Sansai meal structure and Harahachibu principle to naturally control portions without counting calories. Track waist circumference weekly. Visceral fat loss is the true marker of metabolic improvement. Metabolic health is dynamic, responsive to daily diet, and far more controllable than commonly believed. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.